Okay, so welcome, ladies and gentlemen. I am going to get things set up here for Carol and I'm going to make sure that everyone is muted. Carol, we had 192 classrooms sign up for today, which
Yay, I'm excited. That is
very
fabulous.
exciting.
Oh, thank you all for taking the time. We hope it's a wonderful, wonderful experience with long-lasting results for you.
All right, well,
Thank
I
you.
will go ahead and introduce our team here today. So my name is Maria Dismondy, and I am thrilled to be here with Carol McCloud. Carol and I both are the authors of the new book, Buddy the Bucket Filler, Daily Choices for Happiness. I am tuning in from my home here in Michigan. It's a beautiful sunny day. The temperature is a little bit cooler. It's about 60 today. And Carol, where are you tuning in from? Go ahead and tell everyone.
I am tuning in from Venice, Florida, and it's actually a very rainy day with some wind because we're getting some of the outer bands of the tropical storm and hurricane that's been hitting the west coast of Florida. So my prayers and good wishes go out to all the people that have more serious problems than we do. But I'm excited to be here today, and I know that there'll be a lot of bucket fillers going to help the people that are having challenges today. So thank you all for your time.
Fantastic. Yes, bucket fillers all around. Now, ladies and
Mm-hmm.
gentlemen, boys and girls, a little housekeeping here for you. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the chat. And when you send a message, in the chat, I will be able to see the message. And the reason we have it set up where Carol and I will see the messages is we just want to make sure that everyone is safe in their new school year. So we ask you to type in questions if you have any. At the very end, we will go ahead and take some question and answers from the audience. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen, and we're going to read this book to you. We're going to start the school year off with Buddy, and we're going to begin the school year filling buckets. So let me go ahead and share my screen. I have this really cool camera, so you should be able to see my hands right now. Can you give me a thumbs up if you see my hands?
Oh, yeah, thumbs up.
All right. So this helps us to see the book really, really well. And it is called Buddy the Bucket Filler. I'm going to begin sharing with you that both Carol and I dedicated the book to uncles. I dedicated the book to Uncle Danny, and Carol dedicated the book to Uncle Frank. And you'll find out a little bit more about that as we go throughout the story. All right, here we go. This is the first page, and I'm going to begin. Buddy woke up earlier than usual. Today was the day he had been waiting for all summer. His dad was driving him to the country to stay with his great Uncle Frank for a week. Buddy thought about the fun he had with Uncle Frank last summer and couldn't wait to get there. I love this page with the thinking bubbles.
I do too. So let me go. So this is Carol reading now. So on the drive, Buddy's dad shared stories about his visits with Uncle Frank. My father died before I was your age, and Uncle Frank was always there for me. He taught me some valuable lessons. What lessons, Dad? Buddy asked. Everything from how to grow fruits and vegetables to how to treat others. He used to say, you win when you treat everyone with kindness and respect. Buddy jumped in. I have a word for that. Bucket filling. Uncle Frank is a bucket filler. I learned in school that whenever you say or do something kind for others, you fill their bucket. I used to have drives like that to go see my Uncle Frank, and my dad used to drive me. So this was a particularly wonderful story for me to see illustrated by the imagination of another person named Julia Seal. Continuing on,
After they arrived and had lunch, Buddy's dad handed him this week's allowance from his chores back home. You never know what you might need it for, Dad told him. Then his dad left for the drive back to the city.
There he is pulling away. So here we go. Next page. The next day, Uncle Frank and Buddy were up before the sun to feed the farm animals, clean the chicken coop, and pick cherries. After washing up, Buddy followed Uncle Frank's lead to nap before heading to the town barbecue. There they are with their little furry friends.
We continue to have classrooms joining us, ladies and gentlemen. This is so exciting. At the barbecue, Uncle Frank introduced Buddy to Mrs. Mayo, the elementary school principal. Mrs. Mayo looked worried. Uncle Frank asked her if everything was okay. We've run out of barbecue sauce, she told them. What's barbecue without barbecue sauce? Uncle Frank and Buddy could help. They returned to the farm and loaded the truck with several jars of homemade barbecue sauce. I had a bumper crop of tomatoes last year and went wild trying to use them all. Uncle Frank remembered. Now that might be a new word for some of you, a bumper crop. And what that means is when farmers have a really good season and they get a ton of their fruits or vegetables, they call that a bumper crop.
As the week flew by, Buddy told Uncle Frank about bucket filling. Buddy explained how everyone has an invisible bucket that holds their happiness. When we are good to someone, we fill their bucket with a little more happiness, and that fills our bucket too. Very true, replied Uncle Frank. So Buddy had learned about it at school, and Uncle Frank was kind of a natural bucket filler. Now Buddy's explaining how it actually works, and Uncle Frank says, very true. He learned the new word, bucket filler.
Buddy and Uncle Frank filled buckets all week. Uncle Frank gave a lost visitor directions to his relative's farm. Buddy helped Uncle Frank's neighbor carry all of her groceries. Ooh, I love this illustration. They shared their cherries with a mother at the ball field. Carol, can you talk a little bit about why the buckets look the way they do and all the hearts and stars coming from them?
Yes, I do. You know, I wish everyone could really see that they had an invisible bucket and what really happens when you do something good for someone. Because really you have the hearts and stars in your bucket sort of explode and they go over to the other person's bucket. It doesn't take away from your bucket, but it just goes into their bucket too. So it creates this like rainbow of hearts and stars that makes everyone feel good. Now you can't see it, but you can feel it on the inside. And that's what it feels like when your bucket is filling up with happiness because someone else was good to you. Everyone's bucket gets filled. I love the illustrations also. So here it is. On Buddy's last day, they went out to breakfast at a cafe. Uncle Frank introduced Buddy to their waitress, Opal. Then he asked Buddy to look around and notice every face. Do you see anyone sitting alone who looks a little sad? I think that woman in the gray sweater looks sad, Buddy answered. And there she is. He's looking around and noticing everyone's face, which is a very good thing to do if you want to sort of figure out how full or empty someone's bucket is. Next
Carol,
page.
you know what I noticed, Carol? I can see Buddy and Uncle Frank's buckets. They're filled with those good thoughts and good feelings, but I'm noticing that the woman in the gray sweater, her bucket is empty.
Yes, I love that the illustrator put that there. Now, we can't see those, but sometimes people's faces and their actions and the way they walk and talk give you a sense on whether their buckets are full or when their buckets are empty. But when our buckets are full, it's a
Hi,
lot
how are ya?
easier to be a bucket filler.
Good.
And yeah, and
She
their
is in a kindergarten classroom right now.
Oops.
Yeah.
Our
Have
friends
you
who
met
just
before?
joined,
No.
I need to make sure our friends who
Oh,
just joined
friends.
mute themselves. Let me go ahead and
Awesome. Hold
help.
on one
We were
second.
scheduled to meet, but I know that
See?
she's
So we're
got
just gonna
other-
pause here.
Well, he probably
Try to
wants to
mute
meet.
them. Oops.
I love
Um,
that there's so many
Sorry.
classrooms visiting us and joining us. So we'll
It's
continue as soon as we have that all done.
it's a
So
reading of a story.
Let
They
me go
can't hear me
ahead.
or see me, but it's the author reading it. But I wanted to meet you. I'm a behavior interventionist for the district.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Our
So
friend needs to mute.
nice to
Okay.
meet you.
I'm gonna,
I'm
participants, Carol, you'll have to unmute yourself in a second here.
So yeah, I
Okay,
came to bring
got it.
her some lunch and
Okay, there we go. So if you unmute yourself, we should be
I
good.
did.
Okay.
I love that more people are joining us, and
Okay, and you
wish
know
we could
what?
all
While
talk.
while we did that, why don't we have everybody take their hands up and do a little brain break?
Yeah,
Hands
really.
as fast
I
as you
love it.
can. Raise them up high.
Take a
Bring
big
them
breath.
down low. Awesome. Okay, we will continue. Brain breaks are so good for our
Yes,
brain
they
and
are.
Okay, so here we are. Opal dropped off the. Oh, wait, did I miss a page?
No, I think you're good.
Okay, I think the woman in the gray sweater looks sad. Buddy answered.
Mhm.
Okay. Opal dropped off the bill when Buddy felt his allowance money in his pocket. He thought about the candy and toys it could buy. Then Buddy realized something. Maybe we can buy that lady her meal, he whispered. Uncle Frank replied, Great idea, but it's not about us. So let's ask Opal to say her bill was paid for by strangers after we leave. Buddy put everything in his pocket on the table, paying for her entire meal.
Mhm, look at
Wow. Carol, do you
Mhm.
think that this is the lady's bucket now?
Well, it could be, although I think if once she realizes what happens, then I think that would be her bucket pretty full, going from empty to full. Just lots of good thoughts and feelings, thinking, "Ooh, what happened?" So let's see what happens on the next page then. Now we can actually see Buddy and Uncle Frank, and we can see inside the restaurant. I love this illustration. And here's what this spread reads. Uncle Frank beamed at Buddy. Wow, seeing you fill her bucket fills my bucket too. Buddy felt happy and warm inside. He had done what he had most wanted to do. And just like you said, Maria, look at the woman in the gray sweater, her expression of surprise, and look at her bucket. It looks very similar to the bucket that's there, that Buddy used his allowance to fill her bucket. And I think that's what he had most wanted to do. And he filled hers and Opal's and Uncle Frank's and anyone else who happened to be around there. Because bucket filling is very special and contagious. It affects everyone in the area. It's a wonderful thing. So, next page.
On the way back to the city, Buddy talked the entire way, telling his dad about the people he met and his tremendous fun with Uncle Frank.
Mhm.
What were Buddy's happiest memories? You guessed it, filling buckets. Buddy thought about how he had a chance to fill buckets every day. He had learned that the more you fill, the happier you are. So, whose bucket will you fill today?
Mm. Look.
And that is the end of the story. So, Carol, can I ask you to answer that question? Whose bucket will you fill today?
I'm actually catching a flight out to Phoenix today to go visit some of my girlfriends. And another friend of ours. And my flight's been canceled twice, which is a minor inconvenience. But one of the things that I have done ever since I was a little girl and I used to go out with Uncle Frank is every time I would visit him, we would look for someone's bucket to fill. So my rule now when I travel is every time I travel, I look around and I notice people's faces and I think, I wonder whose bucket I could fill. Because sometimes at airports, when flights get delayed and things don't go according to plan, I always look for someone. Sometimes it's a mom with little children, because I know how much harder it is when you are traveling with young children and you're delayed. But sometimes a service person or an older couple, and whatever it is, buy them a cup of coffee or have a nice chat, or I always carry a little extra books with me and share the story and read. But you know what? It always makes my trip better. So that's my rule, is to always look around. I don't always see someone, but I always try to fill a bucket when I travel. And I always like to start my day by thinking about whose bucket I will fill that day. So today, that's my intention anyways. So I'll see how I do. And I even journal about it because it makes me so happy to see that, you know what, there are a lot of little things you can do to fill buckets that everyone can do. So
That's wonderful.
I'm excited.
That's wonderful. Teachers are starting to ask questions in the chat. So what we're going to do right now is we're just going to take a pause. We have a couple more things to tell you, but I have 3 buckets that we are going to give away to teachers in this space. And what will come with the bucket is a copy of the book, Buddy the Bucket Filler. And what else will come with the bucket is a set of bookmarks for your classroom. So, teachers, what I would like you to tell me is, are there any students out there whose birthday is today? And if you have a student in your classroom with a birthday today, yesterday, or tomorrow, we'll see if we can get 3 winners that way. You had a birthday yesterday, Mrs. Atcher. Tell us whose birthday was yesterday. You are the first winner of a bucket. And what you can do with the bucket is you can use it in your own classroom. It's collapsible. But what you can do is you can actually have children write about bucket filling and put it inside of the bucket. We have some free downloads, and that will go out in the email. Actually, it went out in the email yesterday, and we'll send it in the email that goes out later on with the replay as well. You can print them off and have students write how they're filling buckets. So Alicia's birthday is today in Miss Hoffmaster's classroom. Ms. or Mr. Guthard has a birthday tomorrow. So that's 3. We have 3 different winners. That's so exciting. So for those of you who won, I need you to please direct message me. You can do that by clicking my name in the chat. Actually, you can just send it to the chat because it will only go to Carol, McCloud, and I. Please make sure that you tell me your elementary school, your name, and your address, and I will get these prizes in the mail to you. So Carol, what we wanted to talk about now is we wanted to talk about filling and dipping buckets, the blueprint of bucket filling. Can you tell us a little more about filling, dipping, and lids?
Yes, I actually like this little phrase here: fill more, dip less, use a lid, choose happiness. I love the rhyming nature of it because it reminds me that bucket filling is definitely the most important thing if you want to be happy. So if you want a happy school year, practice bucket filling. And the more you fill, the happier you are. So if you see my little bucket here, every time you do something nice for someone or help someone or share, you put a little heart in their bucket. And the more you fill your own bucket too. But truthfully, as many of our other books have said, we also have an opportunity to dip in people's buckets. We all have dippers, and they often comes out when our bucket is not so full. But sometimes the things we say and do don't add happiness to someone's bucket. They actually take away. So we have to practice and learn how to sort of control ourselves when we're having a bad day or we're angry or we're upset, so that we don't say or do something that will take away someone else's happiness. And we don't fill our buckets when we dip also. So the things we do that aren't very kind, they dip into people's buckets. And then the third thing is the idea that not everybody is always a bucket filler. Some people haven't learned, and sometimes we don't want other people to steal all of our happiness. So I say sometimes you have to put a lid on your bucket so that other people, yes, it's going to hurt, and they might take out one little harder star because it doesn't feel good when someone's mean to you, but you don't have to let them empty your bucket. You can start to understand not everybody's learned how to be a bucket filler. And it has nothing to do with you. It really has to do with them. So instead of being mad at them, I feel kind of sorry for them that they haven't learned to be a bucket filler and they take what's bothering them out on other people and making it worse. So those are things that everyone can practice and get better at. But guess what? We're never 100% perfect. We always have a way that we can practice and get better and even talk about how full our bucket is or how full our bucket isn't. When I know someone's bucket isn't full by what they're saying or doing, I try to think of something I can do to fill it. So those 3 rules, fill more, dip less, use a lid, that's happiness and how to keep it a little bit more. And teachers, we need to practice that too, just as much as anyone else, because it will help you keep your bucket full. So teachers, it's a lot of work at the new school year, and I know it's exciting, but try to do your best to keep your own bucket full and do the things that bring you joy. We can't always wait for others to bring that joy to us as adults, but we can do our best to find that happiness and do those things that bring more happiness into our lives and into our buckets. So thank you, Maria.
Yes,
It's so
and
true.
Carol, it's so important when you talk about daily choices for happiness. It's important to note that I, Maria, you, Carol, I have the opportunity for happiness every day because of the choices that I make. So I
Yes.
have the choice to fill buckets. I have the choice to be kind to make sure that I'm not dipping into other buckets. So I think it's important for all of us to know that you have a choice every day when
Yeah.
you wake up in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
Every moment you have a choice in your own happiness, and that really
Mm-hmm.
has to do with filling buckets. And you can also help our friends to keeping a lid on their buckets too. We can help friends out as well.
Mm-hmm.
So Carol, what if we're all to take a bucket filler pledge right now? Could you lead us in the bucket filler pledge?
Yes, I will. There's thousands of children, adults all over the world that have taken the pledge and joined the Bucket Fillers Club. And all it is a promise to yourself, actually, that you're going to do your best to be a bucket filler every day. So, in order to take the pledge, like any other pledge, I want you to raise your right hand. That's the right hand here. Raise it up into the sky and then cross it over your chest on the other side where your heart resides inside of you. So put your hand on your heart, and this is the motion to speak sincerely and honestly about something that you're going to do, which is exactly what Maria said. Make a choice every day. So repeat after me. I promise to do my best to be a bucket filler every day, at home, at school, and everywhere I go. Congratulations, all you wonderful bucket fillers. You now are officially in the Bucket Fillers Club, and you promised to do your best. And Maria was so right when she said it's a choice. Some days are harder than others, but if we always remember that we do have a choice, and if you make that choice to fill a bucket filler, you and everyone around you is going to make your school great. You're going to have happier days, and hopefully the best school year you've ever had before, by just keeping that in the back of that mind. And teachers, just thank you for just taking the time in this very busy time in school to just start it off with everyone on the same page, is knowing that we're going to treat everyone with kindness and respect, or at least have that as our intention on a daily basis. So thank you for your valuable time. And Maria, thank you for all you've done to spread the word. I just
Absolutely.
appreciate you so much.
Well, now we do have a question, and I think that the question, Carol, would be wonderful for you to answer, because it says, what inspired you to write this story? And I wanted you to share a little bit about Uncle Frank as well.
Well, actually, I heard about bucket filling when I was a preschool teacher many, many years ago at a brain research conference for teachers, and the conference was one of the first time I ever heard that everyone is actually born with an invisible bucket. And when we're babies and toddlers, we depend on other people to fill our bucket. But once we get into preschool and elementary school, we can fill buckets too. So as adults, we want to be bucket fillers first, but then when we get old enough, preschool age, we can teach our children and let them know how they fill our buckets. So I learned that at a conference. I went back to my classroom. I told my students, I said, nobody ever told me that I had an invisible bucket, but I knew when they were filling it because I would feel happy and warm inside when I saw them try hard and share and work to do their very best. And so I knew the bucket was very real. So I used it with my class. Now, I also learned about bucket filling without using the word from my great Uncle Frank. And that was my father's uncle. And as the story reads, my father's dad died when he was very young. So his brother, or my dad's uncle, stepped in to kind of do the best he could to kind of make up for not having a dad when he was very young. And he taught us, even my dad and mother had 8 children, if you can imagine that. And we all got to spend some time with him alone. And when we would visit him, he would take us out to a restaurant, which we never got to do as a family before. So even that was bucket filling for me. But then he actually got us to look around and notice people. And he would say, "What do you think if we paid for their breakfast today?" And we would get so excited with that idea. I mean, he taught us way back when. And when we would go and visit him, we would say, "I wonder if we're going to be able to fill someone's bucket," without saying those words, if we're going to be able to buy someone's breakfast. And we used to actually take some money with us for that purpose because we would hide behind the menu just to see the person's expression of how happy they were when somebody that they didn't even know filled their bucket and they couldn't figure out who it was. So it was the most fun thing that I did, and I did it for many years with my Uncle Frank until he passed. So in many ways, this is a story that is very close to my heart. And he was the kindest and most wonderful person I ever knew. And he never had a house, never had a car, never had children of his own. But he did so much good for so many people. And I still think about him on a daily basis. Bucket fillers never leave our heart, our soul, our minds. They're there forever. And they teach us the most wonderful things. So this book is a little testimony to my wonderful great Uncle Frank. So thank you all for sharing it and getting the backstory of this book.
Fantastic. And classroom teachers, I don't see any other questions for Carol or I. So if you do have another question, we'd be happy to answer for you. I will tell you that writing with a partner, Carol had mentioned that she's in Florida. I'm here in Michigan. We have been together a few times during that period, but for the most part, we did a lot of our idea sharing over Zoom, kind of like we're on the computer now. Our idea sharing also took place through email and through our Google document that we were writing back and forth on. So writing with a partner looks very similar to how you write with a partner, I think, in the classroom.
Mm-hmm.
Another friend asked, how do you make a book? Well, I tell you that, the writing part is probably, one of the most challenging parts is getting the words down and revising and editing the work. And then Julia lives in the UK. She is the fantastic illustrator of the book. So she spends time working on the illustrations. And then we have someone called a graphic designer. Maggie Spurgeon was the graphic designer on this book. And she is the one who puts all the pictures and all the words together. So it takes many different people to put a book together. Now, there's something special about the hardcover edition, teachers. Here it says, poster included on the reverse side of the jacket. So if you take the jacket, it's kind of cute because books have jackets too to protect them. If you take the jacket off of the book, we have a poster that you can hang in your classroom, and it has the same saying that Carol shared with you: fill more, dip less, and use a lid. Be a bucket filler.
Mm-hmm. I love that idea, Maria. She gets the total credit for that. And it was such a surprise when I first saw that. But
It's a
I like the
surprise.
added value in the hardcover book that I used to put up the little jackets in my classroom because they didn't really stay really well in the book when you're working with, children or even
Do
myself.
not. They do
So I've
not.
always
Yes.
would like to see the jackets up on my wall. And here's one with an inside jacket that's actually has a great message that I am a bucket filler, which is a wonderful thing to think of yourself every day. Just set that standard that I am a bucket filler. And believe me, you are all filling my bucket today, just knowing that you took the time to be here and that perhaps this will be part of you. And teachers, we can introduce an idea, but we know that someone has to keep it going and reminding. So just using the language and letting children know when they fill your bucket, when they're doing their best, and let them know. And they can be a bucket filler for you too. When I had a bad day and I told them my bucket was empty, my students, they would go to work to think about what they could do that might help me feel a little better. They would put their little thinking caps on and say, "Oh, I wonder what I could do to fill Mrs. McCloud's bucket today." They were the best bucket fillers ever.
We have another question. It says, is it hard to be an author? And I will say that I asked you to ask yourself that question because I know
Mhm.
you're all authors as well. You're all reading and writing and you're doing your best in
Mhm.
school and you've had a little break over the summertime and you're getting back to it. So I think some days writing and being an author can be really simple and some days it can be harder than others. So I think we feel very similar to you as being an author, some days are good and some days are harder. Our best advice is to listen to your teachers because they have the experience and knowledge to teach you to learn and grow to become a better writer every single day. So we just really ask you to listen to your teachers because they're there to help you.
Mhm. And isn't it true that everyone that writes is really an author? So they are really already authors, whether they publish their work or not. But every time you sit down and structure a sentence and put those sentences together and create a story or a how-to book. So if you have a really good idea and something that you think that would either entertain people or inform them or teach them something new, jot it down. You just never know where your idea may go because there are many young authors, and it's not something makes anyone different once you've learned how to structure a sentence and then get that help that you need from those editors that go through your work and fine tune it and improve it. And really, it's something that I believe everyone who's in our audience here can do.
Absolutely. Well, without
Mhm.
further ado, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for your time and we will share the replay for all of you who were not able to join us today. And we hope that you enjoyed the story. Go and fill buckets. You can do
Mhm.
it. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great school year. Bye for now.
Bye.
Yay.